This is the lock that fire did a great job of picking. We're not waiting until we're senior citizens to have a blast. We can have fun along the way. And what we know is that happiness is not something that's a destination. And actually, I don't know that we know that enough, but I'm going to get back to that. Happiness is the journey along the way. I had so much fun doing this last year. I can't wait. I have slides from my trip to Bavaria. No, I'm kidding. Steven's like, cut. All right. We have, I'm so glad we have so many young people here because we're going to talk about two things. I want to talk about fire so far, where we've been. And I'm also going to talk about where we need to go because I feel like the Mayflower is a bad example. So we'll call the new world the new to us world, right? The new to the European people world. Came across on the Mayflower, and I feel like there's all these people in this new world, this new area, this new fire movement place, and I feel like there's a second movement that we can do a better job at. We can get off the boat, and we can do a better job. So maybe not the best analogy, but I think an applicable one because we do have some room to do a lot better, and I think we can unlock much more of our potential. And for the people that are young here, I think it's important for you to avoid some of the mistakes that some of us that have been in the movement for a while have seen and mistakes that we've made. So you can avoid those ahead of time, which is fantastic. So the lock we picked already is this one, right? This is the lock that fire did a great job of picking. We're not waiting until we're senior citizens to have a blast. We can have fun along the way. And what we know is that happiness is not something that's a destination. And actually, I don't know that we know that enough, but I'm going to get back to that. Happiness is the journey along the way. And we can take a sabbatical. I heard yesterday about gap years, about people starting exciting businesses when they're 18, when they're 20, when they're 25, people retiring at 40. All of a sudden they decide, hey, guess what? I think I might have enough money, right? And surprise, like we get these wonderful surprises. I feel like the joy that we're able to experience is fantastic. But there is still, with a lot of people that aren't, maybe not the people in this room, but when I see online forums of people in the fire movement, there still is this big lie that when I reach this nirvana of fire, that all of a sudden there's going to be unicorns, it's going to be fantastic, there's going to be leprechauns, are going to have all kinds of fun every day. And what happens? You wake up and then you're still there. And you're the same you that you were the day before. And then the day after that and the day after that. And by the way, this is not any different than traditional retirement planning. The big thing way back, I haven't been a financial planner. For those of you that don't know me, I've been a financial planner in 15 years. I was a financial planner for 16 years. I was a speaker for American Express and Ameriprise. But what I saw all the time and what the studies even showed then with basic retirement planning is that people had this expectation that I'm going to reach the finish line, I'm going to have the joy. And what happens? The very first thing that happens, we have 18 months of fantastic life. We think it's just amazing, right? I'm finally retired. I'm at the finish. I wake up whenever the hell I want. But then after 18 months, we start to feel these feelings that we didn't expect. And it's loneliness. In fact, there is a study that Cigna just did in 2018. The younger you retire, the more likely it is that you will be lonely. You know why? Because nobody else gets what we're doing in this little room. This room's way too small. We need our friends to be doing the same thing. So if you're gone at 40, you're gone at 45, all of a sudden you're by yourself and you're isolated. And we also know this later on in the same study. Guess what happens when you're lonely? You die sooner. So that's not why we're here. We're here for this whole different thing. A lot of science backs up the fact that innately we are builders. We build things. We build the bicycle. We locomote. And if to us fire equals stopping building, guess what happens? We're lonely, we're isolated, and things aren't going to go away. So we need to do, I believe, three things a little bit differently than we're doing it now. So the first one is, if anybody knows my brand, you know I say this all the time. This is my favorite. Mark's laughing because I say this all the time. This is my favorite. If you've never read Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I'll tell you, I read this book in the 90s and I literally read it and I went, this is okay. And I quote this damn book nonstop. So if you haven't read it, these are wonderful because they just keep applying to everything. And this one especially. This whole FIRE thing, I heard people saying you wanted tax strategies, you want to know what to invest in, you want to know all the different things around having a good financial plan. The best place to start isn't with any of that. It's to start with where do you want to go? Because if you start there, that is pressing the easy button on this whole thing. So on our Stacking Benjamin show, we have this thing called the TikTok Minute because the vibe of our show is you can do this. It's not as hard as you think. It's not going to kill you. So we have a lot of humor. We have a lot of comedy. We have a professional comedian that writes for us. We try to be very good for beginners. Like, you know what? It's not going to kill you. You can screw this all up. Let's just get in the water. It's warm. It's fun. Hoping to get more people here. Stephen was on the show, so we could hopefully get more people to events like this because this is what the world needs, right? What is a better plan? If we're beginning with the end in mind, we take our goals. And what I don't like in financial planning is I don't like just listing them down. Because if you list them down, we also as creatures, we are very visual. If we had sight, if we're born with sight, it's immediate. We all of a sudden notice the difference between this thing and that thing, if we're sighted. Language doesn't come sometimes for 2 years, sometimes longer. It takes us before we have that. So I like putting my goals on a timeline, and then I do like an MMA fight, right? Which one's most important? If I don't have enough money to get them all, which one's going to win? And this, by the way, to me is the magic of a good financial plan, is because if you can't, my friend Paula says, if you can't afford everything, but you can afford anything, right? Tough people don't say they're tough. Funny people don't say they're funny. And people who are okay don't say they're okay. The people I know who are truly okay are so busy doing things that they don't have time to be okay. Time becomes this precious commodity that I've got so much on my plate that I have to do. A guy named Wes Moss, who has a wonderful podcast and radio show. Wes wrote a book, What the Happiest Retirees Know. And the happiest retirees have what he calls 6 hobbies. I think the word hobby is way too small. I think they have 6 things they're so passionate about that they just can't stop doing it, right? Don't just do this. Take it to your community. Bring other people with you. It's so much more fun. It's so much less lonely. Use the skills that you've gained to get financial literacy for yourself first and then financial independence early to bring other people along, to uplift wherever it is that you are. I think that is far more powerful, and you will not experience that loneliness that we see. That's number one. Begin with that end and think far deeper than just this sugary stuff. Second is we need to invest smarter. What is phenomenal about the FIRE movement, I think this was one of the most amazing things. As a guy who for 16 years would sit across the table from people and talk to them about their money, everybody's worried about what the right investment is, right? One guy popped that damn balloon, and this was fantastic. If you have not read this book, you need to read this book. Because what J.L. Collins does, and this aligns with exactly what we do at Stacking Benjamins. Remember I said my goal is to make it easy? J.L. Collins makes it so easy. You know what? You're all worried about what to invest in? Forget that. You invest in the total stock market index, and he proved that you will get there. It takes the thing most of us worry about and takes it right off the table. And guess what? Now you can get started saving. You can get started living. You're not going to doubt your strategy. It doesn't matter. It's fantastic. That is phenomenal. That is also what FIRE 101. What excites me is also what frustrates me. When I see somebody just starting out and they don't know what to invest in, this is my go-to. I think he used the word simple. He didn't use the word optimal. He didn't use the word best. He didn't use the word streamlined. He just took it off the table for people to get the damn thing started. Because when you start, what matters is that you're saving, and you're saving into something broad that's a safety net and that's going to beat inflation. Once you get to the point, and Nick Majuli wrote about this in another great book that I like called Just Keep Buying. Who said that? Nice job, Jalen. Thank you. Just Keep Buying. He says at the beginning, You just need to worry about just keep buying. Just buy and buy and buy and buy and buy. And he said the time to start worrying about your asset allocation, about which things really scientifically you invest in, is when those fluctuations mean more than you putting money in. When those fluctuations mean more, now it's time to get more scientific. And the reason for that is the same reason you have a good budget. I know people who are in the FIRE movement who are very intentional about every penny, very intentional about their tax strategy, but then very sloppy about their investment strategy when they should not be anymore. So let me give you what I like. It's called The Efficient Frontier. This won a Nobel Prize, a guy named Dr. Harry Markowitz. And he had these two axes. The first axis going up, he showed returns. So for different time frames, different tax brackets, you're going to see some investments have very low returns and some have very high returns. And then he had the other axis going left to right. Guess what this one is? Risk, right? So we've got low risk on the left. We've got high risk then out to the right. So if we've got three dots here, that dot on the lower left is going to be, let's say, cash, very low risk, very low return. Because collectibles are really interesting. You can get a much higher return with collectibles, but look at the return might be this much higher, but look at how much more risk you take. So this is where this rule of diminishing returns comes from, right? I can take more and more and more and more risk, but is it really going to be worth my time and effort to get that? So what happened was Markowitz, and I wrote in my book that I thought, he's got a glass of wine, he's going crazy like we all do, right? On a Friday night. And he's just popping dots out on this thing. And he's probably didn't happen at all like that, but it makes me laugh anyway. The jokes don't get better. But so he fills this up with dots, and what he ends up with, though, which is really cool, is this imaginary line where there's no dots north of it. There's no dots. Meaning, if you want, and how many people want this? Who wants a really high return and no risk? Doesn't exist. It's above this line, right? Sorry, I know. That was the whole reason you were here. And for most of us, though, our portfolio, if we looked at it, we might be, let's say, right here. If we did an efficient frontier analysis, we might be here. Well, we have two things. We actually have three things we do. First thing is, if I'm getting the return I need to reach my goal, I can move this way and then look at what collection of investments historically has been on this line here. So I'm most efficient and I'm getting the same return. In other words, I'm getting there, but with a lot less bounce, right? How cool is that? I'm sleeping better at night and I'm still reaching the goal. Pretty cool. Or if I am sleeping well at night, I can just jack up the return and historically have no more risk than I have today. What's cool that I like about that is when you have the different investment choices, it shows you which parts of your portfolio are working, which ones aren't, and then which things need to change and which things stay the same. And then about once a year, you just keep rebalancing. Rebalancing your portfolio. How many of you have never heard that term? Everybody heard that? Rebalancing it sounds good, right? Because if we're rebalancing, we're always going to be, let's say that we're 50% stocks, 50% bonds. And then the stock market goes up. Now we're 60% stocks, 40% bonds, right? Well, rebalancing means I'm going to sell off the 10%, get back to 50, and I'm going to buy into bonds. I'll tell you what happened during my time as a financial planner. It sounds really good. It sounds like a great strategy. This is what happened and for those financial planners in the room, I think you know where I'm going with this. I sit down with Stephen and I'm like, Stephen, hey, we need to rebalance. He's like, great. I've heard of that. Sounds great. Okay, what do we do? I said, yeah, see this one? He goes, oh yeah, the one that's rocking. Yeah, the one that's rocking. I'm like, yeah, we got to sell part of that. He's like, you are on drugs. What are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, and guess what we do with it? He goes, you're not going to put in the one that's sucking. Yeah, we are. Yeah. Bloomberg Magazine says rebalancing takes nerves of steel. I love their quote, nerves of steel to rebalance. But that's the key. And I think this is a much more efficient 201. Not something to worry about when you're 101. 101, use VTSAX. 201, let's get as brilliant with our investing. The one place I think the FIRE movement can clean it up, I feel like we could do a much better job of preaching that once you get to a certain point, we can be more scientific there too, like we are with everything else. Third is I think we need to rethink our role and our team. I love the fact that we have this community here of like-minded people. I love that we surround ourselves with smart people. When I moved to Texarkana, Texas, Paul's hometown, it's always weird to have two people that know Texarkana in the same room. But when I moved there, I had no interest in running marathons at all. All my friends that I happened to fall into ran marathons. Today I've run 11. And you know why I've run 11? It's because all my friends run, right? When you're here, you're more likely to do the cool stuff all the people in this room are doing. You surround yourself with these type of people, that's great. These people are great sounding boards. They're fantastic. I love this. What I don't love is when we go on internet forums and we ask people who we don't know for help. I love real estate. I think real estate investing, real estate and stocks, to Paul's point, two clear ways to beat inflation. Our goal is to beat inflation. Real estate and stocks have historically gotten you there. So it's not that I don't believe in real estate. Real estate's fine. This is horrible advice. This is great. And yet when I go into some of these group forums, I see people ask complete strangers for their advice on stuff. And I like the sounding board aspect of that. That's fine. But what you got to remember is this. Earl in Peoria spends all day on the internet, and he has a definite feeling about your 401k and what you should do with it. We don't even know if Earl can zip up his pants. We didn't know if Earl's wearing pants, right? And yet everybody's asking Earl what he thinks. We need to do better than that. We need to surround ourselves with smart people. Now, what I haven't liked, and this is the 201, the 101 is you have to have radical responsibility for your own goals. And I think Fire 101 has done that. It's done that damn well. Nobody else is going to get you there. If you don't paddle the boat, nobody's going to take that oar over for you. And people that try to delegate that away, you're asking for trouble because nobody's going to get you there. You got to get yourself there. The 201, though, I believe, is that we threw out the baby with the bathwater. We said that means you don't need good advisors in your corner. And when we talk about advisors, we talk about, well, they're fee-grubbing people, and we have to make sure they're fiduciaries. We have to make sure they're fee only. You know what? That stuff's all fine. You don't start that way with advisors. You start with who's going to have my back, who can I trust, who knows me and knows what I'm trying to do? Who's going to challenge my thinking? A true advisor doesn't just go, Paul, man, you're awesome. You're fantastic. Hey, high five. Like every time we talk, it's no, your advisor has your back and goes, you are messing this up. You need to do better in that area. The financial advisor is helping me with making better financial decisions. I need to leave the financial advisor's office or those meetings every time knowing more than I did before. I need to know more than I did before. If my financial advisor is Roger Whitney and he gets hit by a truck, I need that time to have been useful. I don't need it. I don't need him taking everything out of my hands. But not only do I have the financial advisor's opinion on these things, I get the accountant in the same room. And we often don't have this. We don't have it where the people around us, we get them all in the same room and have their opinions dovetail. And maybe to go even bigger, really then when I'm looking at loans, if I'm building my real estate empire, I've got trusted friends that have been there before. I create much more of a board of directors. And I think of myself more like, I'm a Detroit guy originally, so I like talking about GM. My dad worked for GM. Mary Barra, GM, is the CEO. Mary Barra doesn't come in once every 6 months to her, who are her advisors, her VPs in different areas. She doesn't walk into the room once every 6 months and go, hey, so how's this car building thing going? Let me know. How's it going? Mary's got to know everything about a car. She's got to be on top of it. And what do those VPs do? They make her smarter. I think that's a great way to have an advisor relationship, not to just delegate and hope and pray. That's not a strategy. So I think those three things. I think number one, if we begin with the end in mind, we make things easier. I think also for the 201 on that, we end up getting much more, we're less lonely, but we're also helping all these people that need to be helped. It's helping you and it's helping them, which is super exciting. To get there, we need to invest a little better. I think that will create even more riches that we can share with others, with our community, with the things that we're building, the dynasties we're building. And I think by having smarter people around us. A great story I just read, by the way. Did you guys see what Taylor Swift just did to Hollywood? So Taylor Swift on her Eras tour just took, she made a movie and she took that movie and she went right around Hollywood. She didn't give it to Disney. She didn't give it to Warner Brothers. She took it directly to AMC theaters, cut out all these middlemen, which was brilliant, right? We need to cut out middlemen in our life, but Taylor didn't make that decision on her own. Taylor's got smart people who have her back that she bounced that off of, and then she made a great decision, saved herself a ton of money. I just can't imagine how much money she saved by cutting those people out. Remember, there's a community out there that you're helping. So anyway, hope that was helpful. If you want more to know about how to interface with us, if you just go to stackingbenjamins.com/welcome, we have our newsletter, podcast, my book, and all that stuff. So thanks.